In schools is becoming a concerning issue. Just last week, a deputy principal was shot and killed outside a school in Tembisa. We've also heard of incidents where violence among pupils have turned deadly. The question now is, how can such incidents be prevented from occurring in the future? Well, could introducing metal detectors, for example, help somehow curb the violence? Well, for more on this, eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos joins us. I mean, Heidi, really, safety and security, it's never been so much concerning than now. I mean, we've had the shooting of that deputy principal. We've also seen students being confronted by thugs in classrooms. This is, it's a nightmare for teachers, but also parents are tossing and turning in their beds at night. What's the department's reaction to all of this?
It's a huge problem, Devan, and I think it's highlighted even more now because we've seen a number of very concerning cases across the country, not just here in Gauteng, where we had that deputy principal gunned down. The Department of Basic Education in the province has made it very clear that they don't have a very big budget. So the budget that they have, 80% of that goes to paying salaries of education staff at various schools in the province, but also they don't have the means to get security guards at various schools. Previously, they had security guards getting a stipend, so members of the community would come in and assist at schools during the evening just to make sure that schools are safe and that there is an actual presence at the schools. But there was a court case that said that only armed security should be at schools, or rather a proper security company should provide that security at schools. But the department's saying they don't have the means to do that. And now you have a situation where the question is raised, should there actually be metal detectors? Does the department have the budget for that? And what kind of environment are learners going to be subjected to, where you have armed security forces on the school premises and metal detectors? But it seems as though schools are now becoming a target, and the department finds itself in a very difficult position to say, what do we do and how do we keep our schools safe? But I think the Pomolong shooting has just highlighted it even more now, and we're going to hear from the education MEC in the province, where he says they're in a very difficult position and perhaps metal detectors should be introduced.
The problem with education and health is because they receive the last chunk of the budget. People assume that we've got budget for everything. The largest cost of our education department, including here in Gauteng, 80% goes to salaries of teachers. 80% of our budget. So we are left with 20%. That 20%, what must do? You must build schools, must buy stationery, must buy furniture, must pay municipalities for water and lights. So that 20% can't cover to have. People are calling for metal detectors, for example, that when you enter every school there must be a metal detector. People are saying that we must have permanent security guards, armed security guards. And those that in the security industry will tell you, one armed security guard how much. And if you have to deploy them in all the schools, they must work shifts. It's a huge financial burden that we don't have.
Well, I mean, it's extraordinary, isn't it, that our safety and security of pupils and teachers are at the mercy of budgets. Not that the MEC can do anything drastic about that, but it really is staggering. What's the union saying?
So we spoke to Satu this morning. Satu is saying that it's not just the responsibility of security companies to provide safety at schools, but it's also the responsibility of the community in the area at these various schools to make it known that the community stands for the school to be safe and secure, for parents, educators, as well as learners to be safe. So Satu's saying that it needs to be a collective effort from all stakeholders involved to make sure that they provide the necessary safety measures at these various schools. Also, Devan, I think what's being exacerbated here and highlighted even more is that there seems to be a societal problem, and there seems to be violence being the solution and the answer to many of the problems. And of course, now you have schools being targeted, where schools have always been a safe environment, the safe haven for learners and these educators. And now, if it's not shootings that are taking place, it's pupils that are violently attacking each other. All these schools are being robbed. So this is a very big problem. And Satu is saying that everybody needs to sit together and have a conversation as how they're going to make sure that schools are safe and they are not these targets by these criminals, whether it's shootings or violent attacks or robbery.
It doesn't make things any easier when you get teachers receiving death threats. And that's another point that emerged over the week. That should be very difficult to handle.
Very difficult. SATU has just confirmed to us this morning that they are inundated and they have their plates very full at the moment because over the last 2 weeks they've received hundreds of complaints from educators to say that they have been receiving death threats. If it's not from parents, it's from pupils or it's just from external people saying that if you do not leave the school or if you do not remove yourself from a particular post, whether it's principal or deputy principal, will come for you. And Devan, this is very concerning because we've just had a deputy principal being shot and killed. And her funeral was yesterday where her family said, we don't understand why our mother was the target because she was a mentor, she was one of the best educators, she transformed that school around and now she's no more. So this is definitely a huge concern. And what's even more concerning is that SATU saying when they've contacted the police are saying, okay, for now it's just threats. Nothing has happened as yet. But why do we have to wait until something happens for there to be action taken? So let's listen to SATU on that.
In the past 2 weeks, some of the principals have been calling me and some of them have been visited by these particular people that are threatening them. And in particular, these are parents and not people that they are not known. They are known to say, I want my child to progress to the next class. If you don't allow my child to progress to the next class, this is what is going to happen. The other one was told that you don't come to school. This is what is going to happen to you if you report to this particular school. And so for the community is not standing up to protect that because there's no assessment process to making sure that indeed these particular threats are real and therefore they are where they are originating and therefore they can then escalate it to the investment or to the investigation, police or security or safety officials in our district offices or in the head office. So we don't even know who is responsible for safety processes in our district. Are they trained? Do they have the necessary tools and resources for them to be able to respond to each and every element that the principals are doing? Some of the principals that I have caught is that they are visited by a group that says that they are standing in for the parents. You need to admit all these particular learners that have not been admitted. If you don't do so, don't come to school. So a number of schools are closing down as a result of that. So all these particular threats are there, but every time they're reported to the police say nothing has happened. We are waiting for something to happen first.
Yeah, well, I'm afraid that's not good enough. If it's not a fight for positions, it's parents wanting kids in school. Well, yeah, staggering situation. Heidi Giokos, thanks very much indeed for that update.